from the Executive Committee of the President-elect Transition Team. It's good to see you, Mr. Scaramucci.
Hey, thanks, Chris. Great to be here. Good morning.
So, why do you want the names of those who worked on global warming at the Department of Energy? Is this a purge?
No, I don't think so at all. I think this is an intellectual curiosity expedition. We're really trying to come up with the best solutions for the American people and the best solutions for the world. And when you think about Department of Energy or the EPA, I think what we're thinking about is energy independence for the United States, clean air and clean water, which the President-elect has repeatedly said throughout the campaign and during the transition. And the most important thing that I want the American people to focus on is that we can generate a tremendous amount of energy revenues as a result of new taxes coming off of the energy that's underneath the ground here in the United States. And so when you look at our forward liabilities, Chris, somebody like Governor Rick Perry in that position is going to be magnificent for the growth of the U.S. economic engine. So it's a combination of different things, frankly.
Well, you got different conversations. You have, do you accept the science of man's impact on the warming of the planet? And then you have, well, what policy considerations do you make in light of that science? That's one discussion. My first question, though, I'm not completely satisfied on yet, which is, I don't get that intellectual exercise to find out who worked on global warming. Why do you need to know who worked on global warming?
No, I think, look, I mean, I know that the current president believes that the human beings are affecting the climate. There are scientists that believe that that's not happening. I think that,
overwhelming consensus in the scientific community is that man's actions have an impact on science.
Chris,
no, you have to correct that whenever it comes out. Go ahead.
Chris, there was an overwhelming science that the Earth was flat, and there was an overwhelming science that
you learn over time.
We were the center of the world. 100%. You know, we get a lot of things wrong in the scientific community. You and I both know that. I'm not suggesting that we're not affecting the change. I honestly don't know. I'm not a scientist. If you're asking me for my opinion, it's probably a blend of people and what's going on in the You're not asking me for my opinion.
I'm not asking, and I'm not offering my own. I'm telling you that there is a consensus within the scientific community. When you say, I don't know, that means you're ignoring the consensus in the scientific community. I'm saying just be straight about it.
But you're not letting me finish.
Go ahead, please.
I just told you that we met with Leo DiCaprio last week. We met with Vice President Al Gore. As you just mentioned, Ivanka is working on this issue. The President-elect is a very common-sense-oriented guy. And basically what he said is, if we reduce carbon emissions, the air is going to get cleaner. That is a positive thing. Whether you believe in climate change or not, we want clean air, we want clean water for the American people. What we also want is energy independence, Chris, because we know through the process of energy independence, our whole geopolitical footprint changes in terms of our national security, how we operate the American military. In addition to that, we've got all these forward liabilities on these entitlement programs that with the right tax and energy policy, we can pay down and offset some of those liabilities. And so the President-elect is sitting here in a very common-sense-oriented way. By the way, I was in the meeting yesterday with Jim and Darryl. The meeting was fantastic. He wants to help the inner cities and the urban communities. Those guys felt it. I felt it. You've got a very common-sense-oriented president at the top of the chain now, and we're going to come up with great common sense solutions, non-ideological. You know, some of the stuff that you're reading and some of the stuff I'm reading is very ideologically based about the climate. We don't want it to be that way. If you're asking me, do we want clean air and clean water? Yes. Do we want a safer, better environment for future generations of Americans and future generations of the world? Of course we want that. And we're working super hard here in Trump Tower to make sure that that happens, Chris.
Anthony, all I'm saying is that there is a scientific consensus when it comes to the issue of whether or not man's actions has a negative impact on this warming phenomenon that's going on, and that's just the fact. Whether you accept it or not is up to you. The policy considerations that you make are secondary. They don't have to be tied to your position on the first issue. You can accept the science and say, but we have to put business first. We have to keep jobs there. We want clean air and water. I said to another supporter of Trump, just for context, Chris, I just want you to understand the context. I said to Marsha Blackburn, can you be for clean air and clean water if you don't accept the science? And a lot of Trump supporters came after me for it. I'll say it again. because it's about the genuineness of the commitment to clean air and clean water. If you don't accept the science on warming, is it a genuine commitment? That's my question.
Of course it's a genuine commitment to clean air and clean water. Chris, whether you accept the science or not, let's accept the science for a second here in this conversation. We're going to move in that direction. If you don't accept the science, we want to move in that direction. It's better for the United States and better for the world to have the U.S. be energy independent, have us have clean air and clean water, and protect the environment for future generations of Americans. All of that makes sense. But again, you know, I don't want to litigate that. What I want to do is I want to have a problem-solving oriented, common-sense, solution-based administration, because that's what the president-elect has given us a directive to do here at Trump Tower. And so we're doing that. So you and I may disagree on a couple of things, but I think we're both generally going in the same direction. You want clean air for your children, clean water,
right.
So does President-elect Trump, and so do I, Chris.
I just want you to understand it's not ideological for me. I'm just stating to you what the proposition is from the scientific community.
But it isn't for me either.
But you don't know science. Let me just move on to something else, though, which is...
I didn't say that. I said I'm not.
You said you don't know,
about it.
and I'm saying the scientific community does.
I don't. But you're saying that you do, and you're saying the scientific community knows, and I'm saying people have gotten things wrong throughout the 5,500-year history of our planet.
I think you have to distinguish between predictions and the fundamental proposition. But let me ask you something else while I have you, which is, it seems that the main driving factor for the Trump team so far in putting the cabinet together has been wealth and executive experience before diversity. Do you agree with that proposition?
Completely disagree. We've got there's 3 or 4 women that have already been announced. There will be diversity in the cabinet. There'll be diversity in the under cabinet. I'm sitting in on a lot of these interviews. The president asked Jim Brown and Pastor Darrell, we want diversity in the cabinet. We want diversity reflected throughout the government. I think the notion of the wealth thing is sort of ridiculous to me personally. I'm sort of tired of that, Chris. I grew up in the middle class. My parents never went to college. My dad started as an hourly worker because I've been successful in the United States because I listened to my folks and went to school and started 2 businesses. And now that I'm wealthy, I don't want to be tarred and feathered like that. I'm tired of the eggs and tomatoes being thrown at wealthy individuals. Who would you like the president-elect to put into the cabinet? He's trying to put in experienced people who are very good at what they do, who he knows can negotiate on behalf of the American people, and by the way, who deeply love the country. And for myself personally, and I do remember your parents, Chris, I want the same thing that your parents wanted for you and my parents wanted for me, for my children and grandchildren, and the children and grandchildren of America, which is an aspirational opportunity again, and the cabinet that the president-elect is constructing is going to allow us to implement that plan. So, yeah, some of them are wealthy. I don't understand why we got to throw eggs and tomatoes at that. I don't really like it. I didn't start out wealthy. I haven't changed because now I am wealthy, and I think it's unfair, Chris.
I'll take you at your word. Anthony.